Welcome to J Miller Design's graphic design tutorials. I'm Justin and we're going to be going over how to isolate an image today. I'm going to go over two ways here. The first way is a very simple way. If you have a solid background, preferably white, you can use the magic wand tool to just select all of that solid color fairly easily and use a mask to take it out. So select your magic wand tool, or W. Get your tolerance to something around 15 to 30, depends on your image and how detailed it is. But as you can see, it got the washed out areas too here, so we're going to have to go in and adjust it. But it looks pretty good. It looks like it's on the edges pretty nice. So go ahead and hold Alt and click the layer mask button, and that'll put an inverted mask onto your subject there. And that'll fill in all of that area with the black. Get your brush tool, duplicate your layer. You're going to have a shadow layer and a fill layer. The shadow will be set to multiply, and you're going to brush out the white on the fill. With a black brush, you go into your layer mask and you brush out the fill with a nice soft brush. Then you're going to want to zoom in, make your brush nice and hard, 100% hardness, and bring your diameter down a little bit and brush in the tires and the fine detail that you missed with the soft brush. That way your shadow stays nice and smooth, but your subject is crisp. Right there you saw if you hold down Shift, you can do a straight line between 2 points. So you hold Shift, you click, and then go further over and click again, and it'll do a full line without holding down the mouse key. So that's looking pretty good here. This is the easiest way. You could select that background using the other selection tool that's there. I think it's one of the newer tools. I usually use the magic wand, but sometimes the other one is good for grabbing simple backgrounds that have a little bit of detail to it. But the wand tool usually works for me just fine. And I'm just going in here and touching up the edges that I missed, bringing back some of the car that the sun had glare on, so it got washed out of there. But that's pretty much it. You're gonna do those first few steps and then come back in and touch up the spots that you missed. And it's not exactly precise. If you're doing something high res, something you're gonna print out, you're going to want to go ahead and do this the other way that I'm going to show you coming up here. But if it's just for something small, watermark or web banner or whatever, something small, then you can go ahead and do it this way and you can get away with it. It's a big time saver. Here I'm going to use the lasso tool to touch up this hard edge here. Since there's no curves, there's no need to use the pen tool. I can pretty much just wing it with this lasso tool. As you'll see, I'll come out and select all of that white, and then I will fill it with black by pressing Shift and F5. You'll bring up this fill dialog here. Whoops. So Shift and F5, fill with black. Then I'll fill that black onto the layer mask and finish up the subject here. So as you can see, it's cut out and it's in the background. There's your multiply layer, your shadow layer. So you can group those together, rename it, stickler for renaming. So you're going to want to open up the picture that you want to cut the subject out. For me, it's these mosses here. You're going to convert to smart object. That will keep it at this size. If you shrink it, you can unshrink it. back to its original size. Otherwise, once you shrink an image, a raster image, you can't bring it back out. It'll get pixelated, so you gotta make it a smart object. So go ahead and name the layer, duplicate layer, and then point it towards the other document you have open. Close that. So now we got our subject in on the background. Let's go ahead and size it the way we need it. Not doing any unnecessary work. I'm going to go ahead and put it in underneath of my text here. Bring this down. You drop the opacity to see exactly where you want to get your cars in. For me, perspective wise, I gotta get them back a little further into the foreground. That field, make them smaller. Make them like right about. Very good. Bring it down. Yeah, this is a web banner I'm doing for my my main job. You can use this on any kind of project though. So I'm gonna go ahead and start here. You're gonna want to grab your pen tool and select path. Make sure it's not on shape. Then start tracing. If you hold the left mouse button down, you can affect the anchor and give yourself a nice curve. That's what makes this the best tool. It's those curves. It's the best tool for tracing for sure. Later on I'm going to come back in and bring these shadows, these natural shadows back in. I guess they're mostly reflection, but I'm going to make them shadows. That was a little... If you mess up, just press Control Z to undo. I like to make that where that anchor point lies in between the two curves. You got to make that look realistic. If it comes out pointed, then screwed. Gotta do it over again. It's not a huge deal though, because the way we're doing it, we're gonna implement this path here and select it, and we're going to use a layer mask to mask out the background. That way if we do make any mistakes, which inevitably do, you can go ahead and fix that without having to redo everything. So one of the positives about doing it this way. It does take a while, but I think get the best results. Gotta work for it. It's also important to, when you're doing something like this, design its size, because you don't want to be all zoomed in and making everything perfect for no reason if your document isn't even really that big. Right now I'm at 387%, you can see up here. And you know, that's just because I'm being a perfectionist. You can really get away with doing it at about 150% or so. It's funny because it actually looks worse sometimes when you zoom in too much. For some reason it skews things once you're back out to actual size. So might want to go and check on that when I'm done here. important to get to know your pen tool. The more you use it, the more it's a breeze to just fly through stuff like this. It's pretty frustrating in the beginning, but it's worth it. You use it in Illustrator and InDesign, I believe, and Photoshop, of course. That's what we're in now. I am finishing up a tutorial on logo design, and next I'm going to be doing a 101 tutorial on Photoshop and Lightroom and how they work together. One thing I try to do is try to make sure I'm tracing on the inside of my subject, because if you trace too close to the edges, you're gonna inevitably, it's not gonna be perfect, and you're gonna have to come back and fix that because the background will be showing in. And if you try to put it like right there exactly, I'm gonna have to come back in and fix that. But you do what you can, you do what you can. I'm way too zoomed in right now, so I'm gonna back out a little bit. You hold down Alt and use the mouse wheel if you have it. You can zoom in and out really easily. And holding down the space bar gives you this hand tool, and you can move your artboard around really easily. So those are two really good tips there. Oh, see, I don't know why I came up in here, because we got a car there. So let's go back. To do more than one undo like I just did, you hold down Control and Alt and Z instead of just Control Z, and you can go back more than one step. Undo button. How to quit this profession without it. I don't know why I did that. Huh. I think the hardest thing to get used to for me about this was when you drag it, like where does the art go and how does it react to what you're doing with your mouse, and it really just took a lot of trial and error to get that. And once I was done with that, it was more of a matter of where my next anchor point should go. And I found it's like the pivotal areas. It's where your arc changes. So right here is one straight arc, and then the degree of it changes drastically. So you got to hit those change points. It took me a while to learn that one. And this is another reason I like to do it on my artboard and then size it, because you can kind of skip some of the work there because there's a leaf in the way, or you know, whatever the case may be. I love this. I'm getting back to where I was finally. Let's go. Alright, so I just closed my path. You can see there's a little outline there around what you just drew, and that's your path. So you're going to want to go into the paths layer here, or path panel, I have it conveniently in my workspace. If you don't, it's Window and then Paths. This is what you just did as a work path. You're going to want to save that because you don't want to have to do it again. Click here for the drop down, save path. I like the nifty outline. Now hold down Control and click your little window here on the layers panel, and that'll select what you just cut out. Now I am going to hold down Alt and press the layer mask and totally make them disappear. Just press the layer mask. Now you have your cars cut out. That's the hard part. For me, I'm going to actually have to move these up a bit. Right about there may be pretty good. Over. Yeah. Let's see what this looks like flipped. That's a bit better. I think they're gonna have to live with that right there. Alright, so my placement is good. I got my outline, but it's missing shadows, so I'm gonna go ahead and rectify that real quick. Duplicate that layer, bring it down underneath. So this will be my fill, and this one will be my shadow. I'm gonna set my shadow layer to multiply. And I'm gonna brush in those shadows. So I'm gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna take a soft brush, click on my layer mask here, and use a soft brush to gently mask those shadows back in smoothly. If you hold down Alt and drag with your right mouse button clicked, you can get this nifty little shortcut here, and going right and left, it changes the diameter as you can see, and then going up and down changes the hardness as you can see with this little readout here, and you got a nice visual cue. It's a lot easier than right clicking, waiting for your thing to pop up if you have a crappy machine like me, and then changing your brush size and stuff from there. See how long that took? Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and change the hardness to 0, get the diameter to about there, and with a white brush, X to switch foreground and background, D to get it back to black and white if you don't have it in black and white. So white brush, and I'm gonna softly brush back in the dark areas here. Not too much of it because I'm just gonna fade it out anyway, since it's a shadow there. Oops, I'm doing my wrong layer here. Go back. Okay, shadow layer. Multiply. I don't know where that went. Okay. So I'll get these shadows in. I'll just give that much of it for now. So I'm gonna mess with it once it's in. Spacebar to drag the artboard. I'm just doing this real quick because I'm gonna brush all the details in here in a second. We'll start over here. I'm gonna make my brush a little bigger with the Alt and the right mouse button. I like it about there. Hardness is 0. And then I'm gonna press X to switch foreground and background. And with a black brush, I'm gonna brush in these shadows nice and smooth. If you do a little too much, just undo. Looks fine. Bring this out a little bit. Got a bigger car here. No. Oh, undo. Got a little bit too much of that top. Bring this back down. See this? It's not going to have that much shadow. I'm going to take the opacity of this shadow down like crazy because it looks very unrealistic right now. Leaves obviously do not have reflections. So you got your shadow masked in now. It's a little less jarring. I'll show you what it would have looked like without. Yeah, so that's what it would look like on multiply without. So you get kind of close when you do the multiply trick, but a lot of times it requires you to go ahead and mess with it a bunch. Now I'm going to drag the opacity down. We'll get some decent base shadows there. I'm going to go ahead and add in a little more shadow right up on the wheel. I'm going to go ahead and call this shadow patch. Set this to multiply. Get my black brush back out. Zoom in, get your brush. Get it pretty big for this tire. Go ahead and brush a little bit in. I'm going to bring this down once I'm done here, but for now, just get it in. Alright. So, I'm going to add a mask to that shadow patch and mask out what I just did. That looks weird. Let's get out to. Alright, so there's going to be no shadow on that wheel. That looks okay. Again, it's the hard or the soft brush that really sells these shadows, and I'm at size here, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Press Control 1 to view at size. That's what I just did there. And Control 0 brings you out to the full frame. Control 1 is at size. So those are looking alright. I think I'm going to bring the opacity down a little more. And as you can see, it helps a little bit. So that's as much as I'm going to mess with these cars, because for all I know they're going to come out later down the line in the revisions. But there you go, that's how you mask out a background.